Episode 1, Encounter on a Stormy Night. Fran, why are you being so cold to me? A stormy night. The wind was howling. The windows were rattling. Francesca de Rosenthal was in a dormitory being pushed down onto a bed. The perpetrator was the second prince of this kingdom, her fiancé, Leonhard de Claudius. Amidst the heavy rain and the howling wind, located at the east end on the third floor of the girls' dormitory, this was regrettably happening in Francesca's room. The eyes that had stayed the same since long ago, were staring at Francesca. My feelings have not changed since before. I still love you. I also like Leon. Was what Francesca wanted to reply. From the day they first met 10 years ago, the two were deeply attracted to each other. Leonhard was not in an unrequited love. Francesca was also in love with him. I like you, I like you, I like you a lot. She was unable to refuse the Leonhard who looked like an abandoned puppy. Even if she did, with her arms being held down, beating Leon's strength was impossible. But, no. I absolutely cannot. Francesca must reject Leonhard. Because she saw the future. Where she was destined to be thrown away. Francesca had memories of a previous life. A world without magic. She was an ordinary woman, living in a country called Japan. From what she got out of the memory at that time, this world was apparently a game. A visual novel targeted at women. The so-called Otome game. While she couldn't recall the title, she deduced that the heroine who was raised as a commoner was actually the child of an earl, who then transferred to an aristocratic private school. To pursue the love of young noblemen was its selling point. It was a typical Cinderella story. Francesca was a character from that story. She was the conceited and arrogant rival character. She looked down on the heroine and humiliated her, over and over again. As a result, she got what was coming to her. She was denounced by the heroine and her capture targets. And exiled from the school. Her engagement with Leonhard was annulled and Francesca spent the rest of her days at a monastery. This was her destiny, it was the same no matter who the heroine chose. It was during an autumn, 8 years ago, when Francesca remembered her previous life. At the time, she was already in love with Leonhard, and her engagement was decided. But in the future, I will be thrown away by Leon-sama. The memory had told her the cruel ending to her love. That's why she tried to give up. Just stay away from Leonhard, stay away. While enduring the heartbreak, she acted distantly. Leon-sama, please hate me. The heroine is a good girl. Do not be defeated by the other capturable targets and love her well. Because in that ending, you were very, very, happy. I will withdraw myself. I tried to. Yet. Fran, look at me. Don't turn away. He had a low and masculine voice. A commanding voice associated with a royal family. Calling her name with that voice, Francesca could not disobey. Her back trembled and a sweet numbness spread throughout her waist. If you don't like me, say so clearly. If you want to break the engagement, that is fine as well. As Leonhard spoke, a flash of lightning fell. The light shone on Leon's short blonde hair and neat facial features. A few seconds later, a sound like a dragon's roar was heard outside the window. Ah! Francesca was frightened by the thunder, HN. Her lips were robbed. It was her first kiss. Although the touch was faint, the body heat transmitted produced a tingly feeling that filled Francesca's chest. I must reject it. I need to stop the kiss. She reasoned with herself, but her body would not cooperate. Along the way, Leonhard retracted his lips. While she was lost in her thoughts, he changed the angle, and pressed down again. The second kiss was longer, more powerful than before. Surprised by the attack, Francesca was confused and lost her breath. When she began to get dizzy, Leonhard lifted his lips. I like you, Fran. He kissed her forehead. Then her eyelids, her nose, her cheek, everywhere, gently, softly, his lips fluttered about. I need you. I cannot imagine a life without you. I don't want to consider it. Leonhard whispers into her ear. And then his lips pecked Francesca's ear. Yeah? Unconsciously, my voice leaked out. It's tingling. Not only tingling, but my waist slightly arches forward. Ah, Leon. Don't? That's a lie. Truthfully, don't you like this? Leonhardt's voice had a slightly harsh tone to it. While she was thinking, his teeth lightly bit her earlobe, the wet tongue licked her ears. The tingling feeling at her ears awakened a sense of pleasure. Francesca was momentarily relieved when he stopped to speak. Fran, you're so cute. I want to hear you cry out even more. Ah, hi, ja. Eh? Her ears were thoroughly licked from the outside. When Francesca gave out a particular loud cry, Leonhardt focuses his attention on that place. Her body trembled, tormented by the tingling feeling traveling from her chest to her feet. Francesca was unaware that her legs were wrapped around Leonhardt. Tonight, I'll only do this much. How long has it been? Francesca's head went numb, losing her sense of time. In her hazy vision, Leonhardt's blue eyes were looking down at her. I'll come again. At that time, let me hear your feelings, rest in peace. It's sleep magic. Leonhardt's left hand grips Francesca's chin. Like lifting a cup, he then forcefully placed a kiss on her lips. Not only that, he used his tongue to force her lips apart and pushed it inside. Ah! Francesca's limp body could not resist. She was at Leonhardt's mercy, during that greedy kiss. She fell asleep. Episode 2, Troublesome Morning Explosion. This is the Royal Clawlight Academy. Only those of the royal family, nobility and a few wealthy commoners attend here. It's an institution for nurturing the next generation, starting from the age of 12 and ending at 16. A wide variety of topics are taught, ranging from the history and culture of the Kingdom of Claudius, etiquette, world events, economics, political sciences, tactics, magic. Students were given top-class education based on their respective capabilities. Fua. Fran, you look rather tired. The day after the storm. There was herbalism practice in the morning. Refining potions. This resembles those witches from that picture book I saw in my previous life. And the like, Francesca thought. It's not like she disliked herbalism class. She had been addicted to herbal tea and aromatherapy in her past life. It was the lesson she looked forward to the most. If it were the usual Francesca, even if training started early in the morning, she would have stirred the pot with sparkling eyes. But, the circumstances were different today. HNN. Sleepy? Very sleepy. Was Leonhardt's rest in peace still in effect? Francesca, since earlier, was drifting between dreams and reality. Yesterday's downpour had disappeared, outside spread the clear blue sky. If she lied down on the grass and rested her eyes, she would surely fall asleep. The autumn wind lifted the curtains and caressed Francesca's cheeks. Every time it happened, her eyelids would become heavy with drowsiness. Fran! Please wake up! We have class! Her practice partner yelled loudly beside her. The Duke of Valeria's daughter, Trisha. They became friends when they sat next to each other during the entrance ceremony. It's been 2.5 years already. Associating with another duke's daughter, usually, seeds of rivalry would sprout. Actually, in the beginning, Trisha and I had some conflicts. However, a certain incident made us forge a long-lasting friendship. Practice. Magic. Fran. There's too much, you're using too much magical power. Boom. Francesca had the highest magical capacity in the kingdom. With normal magicians, when making an elixir, it would require 10 people, but she could finish by herself. Now, imagine this sort of person pouring an excessive amount of magic into her potion due to sleepiness. Conclusion. It's a large explosion. That was terrible. Sorry, Trisha. Look at my clothes, the teacher even got angry. Hey, turn around. Our backs are still wet. Trisha used magic to dry off their uniforms. Comparing it to modern Japan, it was like using a dryer. But Fran, it's unusual for you to be so tired. What were you up to last night? During the storm, my fiancé, Leon suddenly pushed me onto my bed. I was kissed, and my ears were licked. My body heated up. Just remembering it made her cheeks grow warmer. I can't tell you this. Trisha nods, as though in understanding. The wind blew at her long crimson hair and she pulled back a strand. Is it because of His Highness, Leonhardt? Huh? Bullseye. Francesca was amazed, but then her body trembled. Her face was so red, it seemed ready to burst. Oh, is it getting hot in here? How enviable. That's wrong. It's nothing like what you're thinking. And how would you know what I'm thinking? That, Francesca was frantic, and her head was spinning. Trisha smiled while watching her. In any case, as long as you're happy, I won't complain. But if you're having any troubles, please tell me. Also, speaking of Prince Leonhardt, it seems that he'll definitely become the next student council president. Yes. Although, I thought it would be Prince Christopher. Christopher de Claudius. The first prince of the kingdom of Claudius and Leonhardt's older brother. In the game, he was also one of the capture targets. He served as the student council president. Yes, the student council president was supposed to be Christopher. But for some reason, Leonhardt also ran for the position, and attracted a large amount of support. It was not the same as the original. Francesca was puzzled. As the student council president, Leon will be shouldering many responsibilities. It's not like him. At least, according to the original. Leonhardt de Claudius was a free soul, he did not even want the title of second prince. The game even had an ending where he threw away the Claudius family name and lived as a commoner. Game Leonhardt. Real Leonhardt. The two did not fit together. That's right, Prince Leonhardt has changed. He seems to be a different person compared to the carefree one we saw at the entrance ceremony. Would you happen to know why? The hot air stops as the clothes have dried up. Trisha straightens out the wrinkles on Francesca's clothing as she speaks. Well. No. Oh, so Prince Leonhardt isn't getting a reward for all this. Trisha giggles. Men are like predators chasing after their prey. Prince Leonhardt is one too. Remember to watch your back. Episode 3, pushed down again on the following night. Let's continue from where we left off yesterday, Fran. Tonight, Leonhardt came. Francesca was living in the dorms with the rest of the girls. It was already late at night. Curfew had passed, and to begin with, boys weren't even allowed to step foot inside of the girls' dormitory. Regardless of whether they were royalty, these rules weren't allowed to be broken. But there were still many loopholes. Boys would sneak into the girls' dormitory constantly and enjoy a secret date with their lover no matter the consequences. Leonhardt was also one of them. He took advantage of the easy-to-climb walls and opened the window to Francesca's room, slipping inside. Leon. Francesca was sitting on the bed, getting ready to sleep. Her fiancé suddenly visited. As she was puzzled and confused, he pushed her down onto the bed. Leonhardt's eyes, which she thought had a hint of remorse, had been coming closer. Before she knew it, his lips had descended on hers. It was a greedy kiss. Leonhardt's tongue attacked with full force, taking her breath away. It wrestled with Francesca's tongue, pressed it down, and rubbed the ceiling of her mouth. It was the same violent kiss from yesterday. Her back trembled and a sweet pleasure spread throughout her body. The heat became more intense, she felt like her waist was melting. Fran is so cute. Truly, your cries sound so nice. Their lips separated. Leonhardt narrowed his eyes down onto Francesca. His expression was fierce, like a carnivorous beast cornering its prey, with a sadistic trace to it. Francesca gulped in air. I wonder what will happen after this. She felt the points on both of her breasts growing stiffer. An uncomfortable feeling came from between her legs, she rubbed her thighs together. Are you afraid? It's going to be fine, I'll be gentle with you. Leonhardt chuckles, then brings his smiling face forward. He kisses her again. But his lips quickly move away, and Leonhardt buries his face into Francesca's neck. His soft lips touched her right clavicle. His wet tongue licked at Francesca's neck. His tongue heads towards her ear, tracing Francesca's weak point. The tickling feeling that was on her neck was now at her ears. His teeth bit her earlobe. With only that, Francesca's body jumps. Ah! Do you like being bitten? All right. Then I'll do it more. Leonhardt's teeth gently grazed Francesca's ear. He bit, tugged, and fondled with the tip of his tongue. Each time gave her a burst of pleasure and a moan escapes from Francesca. Yeah, and it was like being tormented by a beast. While there was a little fear, the excitement was overwhelming. Why does this painful feeling make me feel good? As soon as she realized, embarrassment flared up inside of her, her body heated up. Touch me. These were Leonhardt's words. As for where, Francesca could not afford to ask. Ah. Gently. I want to go all the way. Leonhardt moved his hand delicately. He stroked Francesca's chest from atop of the fabric and began rubbing her. Little by little, the tips of her chest stiffened. It was littered with heat and throbbed, ah. When Leonhardt's fingers grazed the stiffened buds, she reflexively stretched out her legs. Her sweet voice escaped, and her body was writhing. Your chest is so sensitive. Truly, this is worth it. Leonhardt murmurs teasingly, his fingers tracing her chest. His hands moved around, teasing her, as if they were planning to attack at any moment. Every time, Francesca made an obscene sound. Hi? Ah? Her eyes rolled back, and her consciousness was fading. Although Francesca's mind was muddled, there were still a couple of thoughts. In fact, there was a key to the window of this room. She usually locked it, but it was kept open today. Why? Is it because she forgot Leonhardt would be coming by tonight? No. There was this feeling. Because he said, I'll come again last night. Truthfully, it should have been locked. Then Leon wouldn't have been able to come in. Because there was no future in our relationship. The start of the main story, the heroine would make her appearance 2 months from now. At that time, Leon's heart will surely be stolen by her. I will be thrown away. So, even now, I have to refuse Leon. I should push him away and scream, "You are a horrible and disgusting person." I have to say things like that. But, I can't do it. I can't. I can't. I can't. Both arms that should be pushing Leon away, were holding him tightly. The mouth that was supposed to scream was preoccupied. I should have kept you away, I want you to come closer. I really, really, like him, I do not want to leave him. However, it will happen eventually. At that moment, her heart constricted in pain, and tears slipped out without her noticing it. Fran? Leon's voice is careful. He stopped playing with her chest and looked at Francesca anxiously. Why are you crying, Fran? Was it disgusting? No. It's different. It was hard to think of words to say. I did not know how to explain. About the past life, the game, the future. It was absurd and would be treated as a delusion. Given the possibility of Leon treating her like a madman, she regrettably cannot say anything. She looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. Fran. It's all right, Fran. Leonhardt gave her a gentle smile, and then hugged Francesca. It held none of the intensity from before, it was a soft and gentle embrace. The heat that was transmitted gave her comfort. Have a good rest. Someday, tell me the reason for your tears, rest in peace. Leonhardt's lips touched Francesca's forehead. Invited by the fluffy drowsiness, Francesca's consciousness was soon swallowed up in darkness. Episode 4, pressed for the reason of her tears. It was still dark by the time Francesca woke up. Outside the window, the dark night sky was gradually turning blue. It was just before dawn. Glancing at the clock on her wall, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. Good morning, Fran. Eh? Suddenly hearing a voice, Francesca was trembling. At that time, the bed creaked. Leon. He was on Francesca's left. On her bed, was Leonhardt. His blue eyes shone in the dim light. They sparkled like jewels. Beautiful. Francesca stared at Leonhardt's eyes for a while. Ha, I'm back. No, this isn't the problem right now. Why was Leon in her room? Francesca lost herself in her memories as she tried to remember what happened. It did not take long to remember. Leonhardt visited the room last night. He kissed and pushed her down forcefully, then licked her ears and neck. But that wasn't all. He had touched her chest over top of her clothes. Many, many times. Remembering the past, she could feel her heart beating and her body growing in excitement. She felt the tips of her chest rise. You? Ha tilde. Her breath was hot and feverish. Leonhardt had on a small smirk. Did you remember what happened yesterday? Leonhardt teased her. Francesca blushed with embarrassment. You're so cute. With how you're inviting me, it makes me want to bully you and tease you everywhere. Leonhardt chuckled and then reached out his hand. Once again, his fingers were touching her chest. Ah. Leonhardt smiled, then stopped moving his hand as he looked at her. He closed his eyes and took a couple deep breaths. Then he stared straight at Francesca. Sorry, Fran. I should have asked earlier. Leonhardt's face was serious. His handsome face focused. It was tough for Francesca to look him in the eyes. Can you tell me why you were crying? That is? Francesca stammered. I was crying because it's painful to be thrown away by Leon. No matter how much we love each other now, when the heroine comes, I will surely be thrown away. But, how can I speak about this? Resolve myself to discuss this with you? Because, no matter which route it was, Leon would fall in love with the heroine at first sight. Even if he weren't together with the heroine, no matter what, he would discard the engagement with Francesca. Falling in love at first sight is instinctual. I can't prevent that no matter how hard I try. The engagement with Leon would be dissolved even if the heroine went down another route. It's set. There's nothing I can do. I like you. I will do anything for you. If something is threatening you, I'll remove any obstacle. So please tell me the reason for your sorrow. There's nothing. You're lying. It's not a lie. No, it's a lie. I've been watching you since we were children. Shining silver hair, round red eyes, pale skin that looked like it would disappear if touched. Fran, you were as pretty as a winter fairy. Even if I closed my eyes, I can remember your figure clearly. I've only ever been watching you. Fran, if you are in trouble, will you not rely on me? Is your fiancé someone you can't depend on? Leonhardt's voice was calm, as if gently persuading her. When he finished, he stared at Francesca for a while, then hugged her. Fran, I like you. I love you. Please, let me help you. Episode 5, struggling to suppress her feelings. Is this really okay? Francesca's heart wavered. What should I do? If Leonhardt treats me gently like this, I won't be able to leave him. Well, Leon. I was aware of my mouth opening. I had to say something. Francesca was already at her limit. This visit of Leonhardt's would be the last. Francesca was afraid of getting hurt later, so she would destroy her relationship with Leonhardt by herself. But truthfully, she still liked Leonhardt, to the point where it's unbearable. To be cold to him, it made Francesca's heart ache. Honestly, I want to tell someone. I know I can't handle it alone. But how would you explain that the world is actually an otome game? I'm not smart enough to communicate it well. Even if someone were to understand, their answer could be expected anyways. Games are games, it's only a story. Reality isn't necessarily set in stone. Why won't you try changing the future? These responses are normal. Even the net novel I read in my previous life, about someone being reincarnated into the game's rival character, was also like that. They made an effort to change the future since an early age, and unknowingly became well liked among the capture targets, a reverse harem filled with happiness. Like that. But, it's hard mode in reality. The world is frighteningly stable. When I was young, I learned that in the cruelest way. Effort won't always bear fruit. Doing your best will not guarantee a reward. It's unexpected, something like love at first sight. This predestined event is surely engraved in fate. I can't change it, even if I worked hard. Leonhardt will fall in love with the heroine. Whether the heroine is tied with the other targets or not, to prove your love to her you understood that it was best to tear up your engagement with me. The most I can do is brace my heart, so I won't get hurt. Whatever I do to change the future would be in vain. I know that. But even so, I, too, also like Leon, you know. Francesca told him her feelings. As soon as she said it, it was like the thing in her chest that was holding her back burst open. Her heart no longer muddled, like a broken dam, the emotions she restrained became a torrent and overflowed. I like you. I want to be with you forever. I want to stay next to you. Please, don't throw me away. Don't hate me. Don't leave me. The back of her eyes were getting hotter. Tears were spilling before she realized. Burying her face into Leonhardt's chest, she could feel his strong muscles through his clothing. As a child, Leon was as delicate as a girl, but before she knew it, he had grown into a proper man. Francesca wrapped her arms around him and clung to Leonhardt. She kept crying as if she had returned to the time when they were children, and then he stroked her head. "There's no reason to abandon you, Fran," Leonhardt whispered into Francesca's ear. The low and masculine voice made Francesca's eardrum tremble. His breath tickled her earlobe. "You're the only one I love in this world. I will make a pledge to God if I have to." "But what is causing you to be so worried? It's going to be alright, I will always, always be by your side." "Haya?" Francesca trembled. Leonhardt softly bit Francesca's left ear. Just a little stimulus was enough to ignite Francesca's body with pleasure. Once again, the tips of her chest rose with the fever of heat. "Your body is so sensitive. I can't help but enjoy it. I've been obsessed with you since we were little. Recently, I've discovered another reason not to let you go. It's intolerable to pass such a cute and lewd woman to another man. You are mine, Fran. I love you. I will love you for the rest of my life. You can be cruel to me, cry, but I will not leave you." Leonhardt's fingers stroked Francesca's neck, then pinched the tips of her chest from over her clothes. Episode 6, Thoroughly Loved by My Fiancé. Haya. Ah. Francesca's body was writhing. Every time Leonhardt's fingers pinched the darkly colored part of her breast, a sweet numbness ran throughout her body. Her mind was overwhelmed, she could not think of anything. She was entirely swept away by the pleasure. "Ah, yeah. NGH. I'm taking it off, Fran." Leonhardt moved his hand towards Francesca's nightgown. Removing the buttons with one hand, he exposed her bountiful breasts in spite of her slim figure. Smooth and as white as snow. In the center, the small pink nipples twitched and stood up due to the stimulation. Leonhardt's hand stopped moving, staring intently at her body in appreciation. Francesca's face was dyed red with embarrassment, but at the same time, her nipples grew more solid. Even the shame was promoting pleasure. "Beautiful. You're truly beautiful, Fran." This time it wasn't over clothing. Leonhardt's hands touched Francesca's chest directly. He grabbed them from the bottom and pushed them up, massaging them. "NGH. Ah. Yeah?" When his fingertips brushed over her bud-shaped nipples, she sighed out in pleasure. "If you feel it so much with my fingers, what will happen if I lick them?" Yeah?" His tongue crawled up to the tip of her chest, causing Francesca to cry out. He sucked and gently bit it, his tongue swirled around her nipple. Her back arched from the pleasure. Her lower waist clenched, it ached painfully. "Leon. Yeah? Ah. I feel strange. I can't take it. Ah. Stop. Haya? It's not strange. You like me, don't you? Being touched by the person you like, anyone would react like this. Wanting to feel more pleasure." When Leonhardt answered, he took his mouth off her breast. Then, he shifted the position of his body and put his hand in Francesca's underwear. "Leon, do it on?" She tried to resist, but there was no power in her legs. Leonhardt was removing her underwear with his left hand. He stroked Francesca's leg with his right. Her upper, inner thigh was tingling from the gentle touch of his 5 fingers. Francesca panicked from being deprived of her last defense and squeezed her legs together. "That's no good. I want to see all of you, Fran." Leonhardt's hand slid from her waist to her hip, before reaching the lower area. His fingers brushed her densely covered hidden place. Francesca's body trembled from the sensation. No. Yeah, that sort of place, don't touch. Leon. You're so wet and slippery. Besides, your body's not rejecting it. It wants me to touch it more. Ah. He played with her labia. Francesca's waist was floating. Every time it was stimulated, her petals would throb and leak out more fluid. It's about time, huh? NGH. Ah. Leonhardt mutters quietly and inserts his index finger into Francesca. gently fingering her to loosen her slowly. Her petals clench and tighten around Leonhardt's finger. Fua. For the first interval, Francesca gave a loud moan. Leonhardt pulled out his finger slowly, placed his hands on Francesca's knees and pushed them wide apart. Let's play a little more. I want to make it as painless as possible. Ah. No. Leonhardt brought his face to her wet secret place. He extended his tongue and scooped up the honey. He gave her petals a kiss, then pleasure shot through the area as he played around with his tongue. He slowly licked up from the bottom. And then circled her bud. Her lower lips squeezed and clenched. Hyan. Francesca gave a sharp-pitched cry. Leonhardt was licking a place she had never even touched on her own. She wanted to escape from the embarrassment, but every time she was stimulated by waves of pleasure, and Francesca was rendered unable to do anything. Her back trembled and gradually it became unbearable. Yeah? Don't, that, no. Ah. Leonhardt sucked particularly hard on her flower petals, stroking her with his tongue. Her petals were overflowing with a large amount of honey from the pleasure. Haya? Francesca gripped at the bed sheet while arching her back. The trembling did not stop, her pleasure rose higher and higher with no bounds, and then. Tilda. On. Her whole body jumped from convulsions. From her red eyes, drops of tears were scattered. Francesca's scream finally ended. She couldn't think of anything. The inside of her head was pure white, she was in a daze. Francesca stared at the ceiling with disoriented eyes and erratic breathing. In her ear, Leonhardt whispered. I've reached the limit of my patience. I want your first time, Episode 7, Becoming One with My Fiancé. Francesca was exhausted, her breath was rough, and she was blankly staring at the ceiling. Fran. I want you. I want you so much that it's unbearable. Leonhardt told her desperately. He lifted Francesca's legs and pressed his hard length to her petals. Leon? Francesca was still dazed after her climax. As the hard length was slowly, but surely, spreading Francesca's body, she was brought back by the foreign feeling. Haya Tilda. Ah. Leonhardt's meat stick pushed open her tight vagina. Every time he thrust towards the back, a dull pain would spread inside of Francesca, her tears started falling from the corner of her eyes. Tilda. It hurts. On? Francesca. I'll try to. NGH. Nah. Ah. The inserted meat stick was hot enough to burn. In order to support Francesca, his arms turned her around so that she could lean on his sturdy body. He embraced her and Leonhardt's large hand stroked Francesca's silver hair to comfort her. Fran, you're mine. Your heart, your body. Don't hand them over to anyone. Especially not to that bastard Christopher. Why would the name of the first prince come up here? In the moment Francesca thought that, Leonhardt pushed his waist further. On? Something broke, the hot stick moved into the innermost depths of her vagina. In the room with the closed window, the scent of arousal and sex filled the air, mixed in was the smell of iron. A bright red spot stained the sheets. The proof of her chastity. For Fran's first time. It'll hurt if you move suddenly. Keep still. Leonhardt's upper body leant down, and he kissed Francesca's face repeatedly. Her forehead, her nose, her cheek, neck, shoulder, clavicle, the places his lips touched were gentle and warm. It felt like she was soaking in Leonhardt's love. Not only kissing, I also like touching your chest. While whispering in a sweet voice, Leonhardt's hands caressed Francesca's chest. Haya? When the tips were pinched, Francesca tightened around Leonhardt. Your vagina is clenching around me. You feel good when I do this. Yeah. Breast, don't. Feels. Weird? Yeah? Although it hurt being penetrated in her secret place, Francesca called out in a sweet voice. As her chest was being stimulated, pleasure creeped through her, the pain found at the place they were connected started to fade. Fran's body is really lewd. I didn't think you'd want me this much. Haya. So cute. You're too cute. I can't hold it any longer. I'm going to continue. Declaring that with an aroused voice, Leonhardt lifted Francesca's waist with both hands. Then he pulled out the heat stick that had barely entered, and rammed it back in. Hyan? Hurts, Leon? On. Is there only pain? Rather, your voice sounds very pleased. Leonhardt moved his hips without stopping. As his hot length rubbed the insides of her vagina, the honey dripping out of her made an obscene sound. Both pain and suffering gradually faded. Pleasure overwhelmed Francesca, lifting her away. Yan tilde. Haya? Leon. Aha on. It was like a storm of pleasure. Francesca was at its mercy and could not resist. As the meat stick pushed deeper into her vagina, her lower body trembled, and her voice leaked out. She noticed that her hips were shaking. She was melting from the pleasure. Give me more. Leon, I want more. It's fine to lose control. I want to see how lewd you are. Leonhardt whispered with a voice laced with pleasure. He held onto Francesca's knee. His hips sped up and slammed against her. The meat stick thrust in deeper than before, and her deepest area was stimulated over and over again. On ya. Leon, tilde. Her insides were vigorously pounded. Francesca instinctively tightened up. Leonhardt began to move faster, and she could feel something inside of her lower abdomen build up. Francesca arched her back, her whole body twitching and convulsing. Hi tilde. On? Tilde. The pleasure was unprecedented, her body visibly leapt from the bed. Her mind was pure white. Almost simultaneously, Leonhardt's body shook. Immediately, the meat spear buried deep inside of her twitched violently, spurting out milky white fluid. Fran, I will never let you go. Fran. Leonhardt moved his waist back and forth, emptying out his last drop. He collapsed onto Francesca and enveloped her in a strong hug. Wrapping her. No, as if to capture her. I love you. Not anyone else. For me, there has only ever been you. Episode 8, let's talk about my recovered memories, first part. Ha. After the act. On Francesca's snow-white skin, several beads of sweat were forming. Yet the feeling of climax was lingering. She stared at the ceiling blankly, her breathing was rough. I did it. I did it with Leonhardt. I intended to put a distance between us. I intended to let go. Although this relationship will someday collapse, I gave my body to Leonhardt. He hugged her tightly and she couldn't bear the words of affection whispered into her ear. Rather than regretting it, a warm satisfaction gently spread throughout her lower belly. Because it felt so comfortable, Francesca held hope for the future. Perhaps it won't turn out like the original. Because in the game, Francesca and Leonhardt never even held hands. It was a very, very pure relationship. But now it was different. Well. We did it, something like that. Since the events completely differed from the original, the end might be different as well. Maybe the original could be thrown away. I want to stay with Leon forever. I gave you my first time, so is it alright to expect something more? No, I shouldn't. It's useless expecting anything. Any expectations will only end up being betrayed. No, don't look back on your dreams. Even if dreams and reality were different, it would still end up breaking my heart. It's useless hoping for the future. Trying to change it will only end up in vain. Effort doesn't always bear fruit. It doesn't matter how hard I try. No matter how much I struggle, the result is the same. The world was made tremendously sturdy. And I was made aware of it in an extremely cruel way. Francesca de Rosenthal received memories of her previous life during autumn, when she was 8 years old. She was visiting the Royal Medicinal Herb Garden along with her mother. Wah, so nice. I feel sick, it smells delicious. Young Francesca was a curious child. She took a look at every single herb and yelled out her impressions on their scent. Her mother, Marianne, and the medicinal herb gardeners enjoyed watching the innocent Francesca. Eventually, Francesca reached a certain flower. The petals were a mysterious light blue and its shape was like a closed parasol. Hey, what flower is this? Francesca shouted out her question. A slender female worker answered calmly. This plant came from the east, it's called morning glory. It has a nice scent. Oh, thank you. Francesca lowered her head in thanks. Then brought her nose up to the pale blue petals. It had a rather refreshing scent. Even though this was her first time smelling something like this, it felt somewhat nostalgic. Ah! Something stirred in the back of Francesca's head. It was as if a secret treasure box was opened and the things inside spilled out. Memories that she could not recall entered her mind. A world without magic. A country called Japan. Living there was a tall woman. She worked for a trading company and returned home every day after midnight. There were no encounters with the opposite sex, every day was work and then home. As a result, she started to use herbs and aromatherapy for stress relief. Originally, she was already interested in it, but now she was addicted. She even tried to come up with some original formulas. That winter, when she was 30 years old. On the way home, she was hit by a car. The memories stopped there. Francesca somehow understood that she had been reborn. That person in the previous world, was her in this world. There wasn't any confusion about the two hers. The previous life was the previous life. This world is this world. These things were naturally distinguishable, the knowledge of the previous life was privy only to Francesca. So, Francesca's personality remained the same. Eventually the flood of memories ceased and Francesca noticed. Being born again, this world. It was still a mystery to remember. Speaking of the previous life, she also liked to play otome games. Since real life was lacking in excitement, she sought comfort in fiction instead. Going from one clear to the next. Clearing that and then there was more. It had the air of adults, she could hop through several otome games privately. It was the complete opposite of her reality, an unfortunate way of life. In any case, this world was exactly the same as one of the worlds in a game she played before. Though she forgot the title, the setting was that of medieval Europe. It turned out that the heroine who was raised as a commoner had the blood of an earl, and then she was transferred to the royal aristocratic school. The intellectual first Prince Christopher, the freewheeling second Prince Leonhardt. In addition, there was also a haughty upperclassman and a puppy-like underclassman with love stories to unfold. Francesca was also a major character, she was the rival character disturbing the heroine's road to love. As a result of bullying the heroine, she was confronted with the annulment of her engagement with Leonhardt, and then expelled from the school. She was confined in a distant monastery in the far north. Now, Francesca had also read web novels in her previous life. There were some that involved being reincarnated into the rival character of an otome game world. In these stories, the protagonist would change their miserable fate as a rival character, in short, they would start planning to save themselves. But Francesca was different. I have to save my mother. According to the original world, Francesca's mother, Marianne, will eventually fall ill and leave the world. Knowing about what would happen in the future, her first thought was not of herself, but her mother. From that day on, Francesca began studying potion making. She would use her own hands to save her beloved mother. Episode 9, Let's Talk About My Recovered Memories, Second Part. At the age of 8, Francesca was bright, innocent and curious. She was able to get along well with others, the poster child for young ladies everywhere. If one were to compare, she would be more like a heroine than a rival character. And precisely because of Francesca's character, she could not overlook the fate of her mother, Marianne. According to the original, Marianne would fall ill with black crest disease in the future. The disease causes the person's magical power to go out of control, it weakens the whole body. As the illness progressed, the skin would become affected by the magical power and a black pattern would emerge. For that reason, it was called black crest disease. The cause is unknown. It leads to death about 1 year after contraction. There are currently no cures. But, I can cure it. Definitely. In the original, the heroine completed a potion which would cure the black crest disease no matter which route you were in. Although the process was not explained in detail, the main outline remained in Fran's memory. Even if it's the beginning, it's better than nothing. After that, I only need to work hard. Young Francesca believed that possibilities were endless. Effort would bear fruit, hard work would pay off. If you don't give up, your dreams will definitely come true. You can change the world as long as your heart is in it. Mother, I'll definitely save you. Although it would be different from the original, she would make the cure for the Black Crest disease. As for what was necessary, first, a better environment. Starting on something so grand, if you don't prepare properly, you'll get knocked off your feet. Francesca understood this because of her experience with others in her past life. So, what material to start with? Francesca immediately ran from the herb garden and headed to her father's study. Her father's name was Ashley de Rosenthal. He was the general of the Clawlight Army, nicknamed the Cold Royal Marshal. He brought fear to the neighboring countries with just that name. His skill as a strategical tactician was high. Even if he was at a disadvantage, he was able to keep his calm. It brought a lot of victories to the Clawlight Army. "Hello, father, could I ask?" Francesca was shy and fidgety as she tried to breach the topic. It was said that the Duke of Rosenthal, even if his beloved daughter were present, he would keep up the same sharp look. His expressionless face was famous. In the military, people would bet on who can make the Duke of Rosenthal laugh first. "A favor. I'm listening. Say it clearly." I would like to marry father in the future, but I'm worried that father will fall down with illness. Therefore, I want to study potion making." Home? In short, the Duke of Rosenthal's emotions were short-circuiting. For a little girl to say, "I want to marry father," as a father it would make them more or less happy. However, the Duke of Rosenthal's face had not changed at all. His face was still expressionless. His gaze was cold and he spoke bluntly. "I'll think about it. But don't expect too much." That was his final answer, but still, it was lacking in a clear response. Francesca intended to beg with her heart and soul. Was it a failure? No. It was a great success. "Francesca, you are Prince Leonhardt's fiancé. You cannot marry me. But I understand what you wish for. So in response to that feeling, you should cherish it." The Duke of Rosenthal had exceeded whatever Francesca could have imagined. In addition to hiring tutors, she also received lessons from the Royal Academy of Medicine. In short, she built a herb garden from within the mansion. Francesca, who managed to trick her father, got what she needed and will finally be able to set off on her original goal. The potion development of the Black Crest disease. Of course, she wouldn't just start refining the potion. A foundation of knowledge was needed. Learning medicine, learning pharmacology, she also asked experts on the Black Crest disease. Francesca was an excellent child, able to absorb everything she learned. Besides, she already had at least 100 times more magical power than an average person. Whether it was an advanced potion which would need the help of multiple people, she was able to refine it by herself. Seeing the excellence of the prodigal 8-year-old, the adults in the area were astir. The only daughter of the Duke of Rosenthal is a genius. This sort of rare phenomenon, she'll leave behind a name in history. I wonder if she'll consider my son. That's impossible. Lady Francesca is already engaged to the second Prince Leonhardt. But still, it wouldn't hurt to curry favor with her. Her family's still a duke's. Well, favor or not, she was able to single-handedly achieve where she is, that girl. For Francesca, everything was going well. A beautiful appearance and cheerful personality. An honest heart. Everyone she met was on her side, and everyone was willing to lend her power. Being blessed by her surroundings, the young Francesca was walking along the path of light. Episode 10, Let's Talk About My Recovered Memories, Final Part. I'm very sorry, Francesca-sama. The black ivory that was ordered from the east, again, it seemed to have been transported to another country. Do you know which country it was transported to? As the delivery was caused by miscommunication, it's rather complicated. Unfortunately, it will be difficult. Francesca de Rosenthal, it was her 10th autumn. In the past 2 years since she regained her memories, she was now thoroughly prepared in medicine and pharmaceutics. She was now beginning to develop the potion for Black Crest disease. According to the knowledge she had of the game, Marianne would contract it during next winter. She luckily had the outline of the potion recipe to study. There was time to spare. There should be more than enough. Or so I thought. It's serious, Francesca-sama. Please don't get upset. Bad news? There has been a large fire in the medicinal herb garden of the royal city. Research may not be able to continue at this rate. When Francesca started working on the potion, as if fate had bared its fangs, various problems had arisen. If she tried to get rare materials from overseas, pirates would attack the ships, or it was carried to another country by mistake. On the contrary, the royal medicinal garden was burned to the ground. It was even more difficult to even get common herbs now. Even if they could be purchased from another herb garden, the supply that year was short due to cold weather. So, the research cannot proceed. What can I do? Francesca was worried. However, a helping hand came from an unexpected place. There's no problem. There's a medicinal herb garden in our house too. Francesca's father, Ashley D. Rosenthal. 2 years ago, he had made an herb garden inside the premises of the mansion for his daughter. To care for the herbs, he had hired an expert. Ashley, himself, seemed to have always longed for a home garden. He would secretly grow tomatoes or eggplants in the corner. Occasionally they would make an appearance on the dining table. They were quite good. By using the medicinal herbs in her family's garden, Francesca was able to retrieve the bare minimal amount of herbs. While she settled this incident, another one would occur. Francesca was given a lab located in a corner of the Royal Academy of Medicine, but an explosion had occurred in the one next door. Many of the prototype potions and materials were lost. Although she moved to another compartment after the accident, there were many cases of theft. None of the medicinal herbs used could be defective products. Even if she ordered more, they would hardly arrive. Francesca D. Rosenthal. Come with me. Certainly, even kidnappings would occur. Another country's spy noticed Francesca's talent, and tried to snatch her away. My daughter is not yours to take. Don't think that you can leave this country alive. Her father, Ashley, had arrived. The soldiers on duty quickly and skillfully apprehended the spy. And so, Francesca was safe, but she started to have doubts. Everything was going well up until now, so why? As soon as she started developing the potion for black crest disease, several problems would occur one after the other. What did this mean? It feels like the world is going against me. Francesca unintentionally let her complaint spill out, grumbling to herself. Eh? Francesca-sama, did you know? The world has a set course, an existence called fate. They had said, a young man who served as Francesca's assistant at the time. His name was Ludwig Byrne. He had dark purple hair and exuded a somewhat mysterious and calm atmosphere. There's a saying in my hometown. Do not go against fate. Even if you were to try, it will always correct itself. That is the power that exists in this world. Perhaps the development of the potion is not going well because it is not what fate has in store. If we continue to research, in the future, it's possible for a disaster even worse than a kidnapping to happen. Seeing as it's like this, why not consider freezing the research? Ludwig's speech was like a serene prophet trying to convey the words of God. I almost nodded unintentionally. His words were very persuasive in the graveness and seriousness of the situation. But Francesca could not afford to accept Ludwig's idea. If she quit her research, it would be the same as abandoning her mother, Marianne. I will continue the potion development. If I don't give up, my dreams will definitely come true. Even if it's the fate of the world, I can change it if I set my mind to it. I understand. Ludwig bowed down with an impressed look on his face. Then I, Ludwig, will help Francesca-sama challenge fate. Once again, please treat me well. Oh, okay. Is there something wrong, this sudden change? No, I just wanted to support Francesca-sama. Although there were many troubles along the way, Francesca was able to successfully make the cure for black crest disease. It was at the very last minute. It was completed during her 11th winter, and on that day, her mother, Marianne, fell to black crest disease and was brought to the Royal Hospital. Ludwig. Deliver this to my mother. Please. Understood. Black crest disease progressed rapidly. On the first day, the whole body would become paralyzed, on the second you would lie in a comatose state, and then they would lose their lives on the third day. If the potion weren't drunk as soon as possible, it may be too late. During this time, Francesca was at the border of the royal city, inside of a prefabricated laboratory. The other day, a second explosion had happened at the academy and Francesca's lab was rendered unusable. Francesca was somehow able to complete one potion and entrusted it to Ludwig. He got on a horse and rode towards the royal capital at great speed. Ludwig, stay safe. There's still time, right? There was enough time, there was, but Ludwig could not make it. I am extremely sorry, my lady. There were thieves, the potion was robbed. Perhaps it was someone who was aiming for the results of Francesca's research. Ludwig was ambushed by masked men. After they had beaten him, they stole the cure for black crust disease. Francesca immediately started refining a second potion. When it was completed, her mother's condition had already progressed to an irrecoverable point. Just like the original, Marianne lost her life. It was on the same date that she was told in the game. Unfortunately, that wasn't the end of it. Feeling responsible for Marianne's death, Ludwig resigned and disappeared. There was more. To begin with, the potion invented by Francesca was a failure. Even though it could relieve the symptoms of the disease, they would still lose their lives. Is it because the potion's recipe was different than in the game? But, she couldn't come up with any other recipes. It should have been a perfect match. There was still another cause. What Ludwig had said, about fate. The cure for black crust disease was to be invented by the heroine. That's why Francesca could not fully complete it, that's the only possibility. If fate is present, then it absolutely won't change. The world was tremendously sturdy. And so, Francesca turned away from everything. Effort will not always bear fruit. Doing your best will not guarantee a reward. No matter how much you struggle, the result is the same. Therefore, surely, I will be abandoned by Leon. The 15-year-old Francesca had muttered aloud. Then, Leonhardt, who had slept as if covering Francesca, moved his body with some rustling sounds, and hugged Francesca tightly. He placed his lips close to her ear and whispered with a low voice that made her tingle. I won't abandon you. There's no reason to abandon you. My cute Francesca. Don't have expectations. Don't dream about useless things. Nevertheless, my chest started beating quickly. I love you. You belong to me. I will not give you to anyone. Do you understand? Leonhardt's words filled her with happiness. Francesca nodded in understanding. She slept peacefully, feeling his body temperature beside her until morning. The next morning, Francesca, who went to school, came across a very shocking scene. I lost my way. In the courtyard of the school, there was a girl with soft and fluffy, curly, caramel-colored hair with a troubled expression. I didn't remember her name, but that girl. She was the game's heroine. But, it's strange. There should still be more time before the heroine appeared. Sorry, would you be able to guide me? The heroine was talking to none other than Leon. The original also had this scene. It was the prologue to the game. The heroine who got lost in the school, not knowing that Leonhardt was a prince, would ask him for directions. Although impolite in the beginning, Leonhardt fell in love with the heroine at first sight and happily guided her. Ah! Francesca felt like she was suffocating. Last night I went through great pains to bind us, but, I wonder if I'll be discarded. I don't want it. That sort of thing, I don't want it. Leon. Unintentionally, she called his name. Then, in that moment, she saw Leonhardt look her way. He turned back towards the heroine and spoke to her. I'm sorry. I'm also in a hurry. Hey you, I'm entrusting you to escort this young lady. Why yes. Leonhardt caught hold of the boy who was walking nearby and pushed him to be the heroine's guide. This was not like the original. Francesca could see right from wrong. So, what was happening? This is different from the original. Although the heroine quickly panicked, Leonhardt ignored it and came towards Francesca. Good morning, Fran. I'm sorry, I spoke to a woman other than you. Will you forgive me? Leonhardt lifted Francesca's chin and gave her a kiss. Not only that, he put his tongue between her teeth. The tongue that was inside of Francesca's mouth was stroking roughly around the ceiling. The sweet pleasure ran towards her hips, and she unintentionally collapsed. WH, what are you doing? It's to demonstrate our love. I'm not interested in anyone but you. I want you to understand. Leonhardt laughed. It's frustrating, I was captivated by his refreshing smile.